Hi. Okay, so this isn't going to be a sort of build video per se. I mean, there's going to be some building scene in it, but this is really more of a kind of a reboot or a restart of the channel. I started doing these videos for myself really, probably around lockdown, and started building and was just really inspired by all the other crafters that I'd seen sort of like during lockdown. I'd recently taken redundancy and tried to start my illustration career again as a freelancer, which, as somebody in his mid 50s or early 50s as it was back then, it wasn't easy, I suppose, but it's happening. I'm back in it, and I've actually managed to curate the kind of work that I'm doing. But a big creative boost for me was really starting to do this kind of 3D stuff again. I'd done it before as part of my job, but in a very different way, and I'll come to that later on. But just so you know what's going to happen in this video, I'm going to be talking about 3 things, and that's them. So I guess we'll get on with it. Saturday morning, me and my wife Sarah, we went. So I've been to some of the other game cons. I went to the big Games Expo at Birmingham, and I've been to Dragon Meet in London, and they were great but hard on the feet, and just so much to take in, whereas ChillCon was a little bit more, I suppose, chilled out. That's what people say, and it's exactly that. Being a 2-day event, we got some time to see the city itself as well, which is great fun. Hit some rock bars. Chilling outside, you got to see a lot of the cosplayers going through their photo shoot. Inside the event itself, there's just so many miniatures to check out, and you could get around it quickly and then go have a cup of tea, and then there was a seminar, of course. That was fantastic. Back in home, I went back to the shed. Being inspired by everything I saw that weekend, it was time to clear the decks. ChillCon was fun. I bought a bunch of loot from there. I'll probably be going through that and showing you what I got. One of the really nice things about ChillCon, it was my first year going. I'd seen a lot about it. I'd seen people posting about the previous year. Was getting to meet some of my kind of YouTube heroes, or at least, when I say that, it's basically the people that have really inspired me to kind of get this thing started and really take some joy in the making of things again. So people like MS Paints, people like Dan does Bill making stuff, and a recent one for me is Greg Johnson making, and Greg was kind enough to even come over and sit next to me on a bench outside at ChillCon and have a proper natter about the whole kind of process and everything like that, and it was great, and I'd like to thank him for that. Here's my loot from ChillCon. So first up, some snips. I need some more because my old ones look like I've been trying to cut the parking lock off the Millennium Falcon. Yep. So hopefully those will come in handy. Yeah, a gift. And this was great. I'd seen these online. I was thinking of picking them up, and I hadn't realised it was Pete the Wargamer that was doing these. So I think I bought them from his table and didn't realise I was actually buying them from him. These little antlers I'm going to be using on a Turnip 28 project I've got coming up. Yeah, there's definitely an antler theme running through this particular part of my Turnip 28 project. So yeah, that's good. There's the ubiquitous guide, well folded and stashed in my pocket most of the weekend, but plenty of stuff in there. Oh, and then we've got this. Oh, well, that'll definitely get some use on the desk. Yeah. and terror birds. Now, I'd been doing a project recently, which you might have seen on one of my other videos, where I was making something quite similar to this. I was making some axe beaks for a Daggerheart game I was running, and I picked these up basically just so I could compare the sculpt with the kind of stuff that I'd made. And I was kind of pleased, actually. I didn't think I'd done bad, really, with a bit of green stuff and some broken up velociraptors. So yeah. Ah, yes, and the dwarves for my Dwarven Spelljammer Forge ship project. I think at first I thought these must have broken carrying them back from ChillCon. But most of them survived. This guy's cool. I'm going to definitely have him on board the prow of the ship there. And somehow, considering the other ones that broke, I think I must have broke them getting him out of the bag, but this guy's Mohawk managed to survive, which is bizarre by comparison to the other ones. So there you go. But yeah, bunch of fine bearded dwarves there to go with the rest of these guys. Basically, like I said, I'm building a Spelljammer Forge ship. It's going to look like that, hopefully, or something like that. And yeah, this is going to be the crew. So next up, these plastic cup lids, which for every cup of tea I had, I managed to keep one of those, and I'm going to be making star doors out of them for a bit of a spaceport project I have kind of planned that's still in the wings. You can see me faffing around with some other sprue-based star doors there, but yeah, they're definitely going to come in. Nothing goes to waste. This was cool. Picked this up from MS Paint's table. Very nice little figure. Definitely got some ideas how this might be used. Here you can see MS Paints and Hector signing my postcard. That was lovely. Thank you very much. And a piratical photo with Hector. I also met Bill there, and he was kind enough to give us these Gutterland zines. Both my wife and I got one each. Very kind. Very cool. And this was from the Bring and Buy table. I was hoping to find some kind of cool sprues, but a lot of it was just not quite what I was looking for. But then I found this little box full of like vehicle bits, and I thought, oh, maybe there'll be some tonk stuff in there, but I didn't look at it at all while I was at the event. I just thought, all right, I'm going to save all that till I got home. So this was kind of my first time looking through it, and a lot of this was great, especially considering I'd made my mind up now to do Bill's Big Bot Bash. So I figured that some of this would really come in handy. These little cables as well might come in handy for another project I had in mind, which was going to be for one of my Turnip 28 projects. Nice antenna there, lovely, and that could go on the front of a tonk, couldn't it? I can imagine it being on front of one of these things. More about those later. Yeah, definitely these cables are going to come in handy for that Turnip project, which is just sitting right there. It's going to be weird. It's definitely going to be weird. And there was just a ton of stuff. Far too much to kind of keep on just narrating through like this. Oh, look at that. Would you look at that? Legs bent at the knees, just like a pilot. This is exactly what I'd been looking for. I'd bought a load of 1 in 48, sort of like 28mm pilots. I've been trying to find them off the internet so that I could make some pilots for my ships and stuff like that. And here, 2 in one little pack that I wasn't even expecting. Brilliant. Okay, well at least that's something. I can make some more pilots with those. I'd be surprised how hard it is to find sort of like figures that are sitting down that are actually cool enough to sort of like want to use. Yeah, there's just a ton of stuff in here.
this was cool. So that's that. Last thing, obviously, that's my weekend pass. So yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. Oh, one last thing, yes. We got given one of these on the way out. A little spud. ChillCon spud. Very nice, thank you very much. Cheers, ChillCon. That was great. So why a reboot of the channel? Well, I guess it'll just allow me to get my episode numbers in order should I want to be able to kind of reference back to previous episodes in upcoming episodes. Plus, I think the last video, the Big Butt Bash video, seemed to have got a lot of new subscribers, and I guess this is a way to sort of say hi to those subscribers and thank you very much for doing so. But also, it feels after a year's hiatus that maybe this is the time to really kind of kickstart the channel properly, and so starting with this episode 0 and then just moving forward from this point.
So, who am I? I'm an illustrator. I'm based in Hull. I grew up not far from here on the coast, and I've always kind of drawn for a living. I started out as an archaeological illustrator, went off and did my college courses and university, and trained as an animator at university, stop motion. Never really did much with that other than use the model building side in my later career as a theme park designer and visitor attraction designer. I ended up in a corporate kind of environment designing exhibition stands, and now after 10 years teaching, I took a redundancy and basically have gone back to freelance illustration. So but I've curated that a little bit in the fact that I'm now really just kind of interested in doing comics and making illustrations for TTRPG manuals, which is what I'm doing. I do some work with Cubicle 7 on their laundry books. I've done a little bit for their Vault 5e stuff, but I've worked with other companies such as We Evolve on Aegean, and their Wild RPG, and a few other pieces here and there. In terms of comics, I worked with Pat Mills on his Spacewalk book, and I've done things like Flintlock, and worked on one of the Western Noir short stories for Quantum, as well as making my own comics. But like I said, during lockdown, this was a real kind of like a crucial time for me, sort of like as a creative person, I think. And one of the things that I really got a joy out of was watching people like Bill Making Stuff, Dan Does, MS Paints, 52 Miniatures, and a whole bunch of other people I kind of like started to follow. And just as a side quest, I started to make things myself, and I made a bunch of ships. We started as a group of friends who were disparate and spread all over the country to organise a thing called Beard Moot, where, you know, a lot of my bearded friends kind of get together and we played D&D around the table, but we also play, you know, the One Ring, we've played Aliens, we've played a whole bunch of like different games and everything. And as part of that, one of the first things I did was make a bunch of Tonks so that we could have a game of Tonks, and it's kind of really just continued from there. And now my little mini shed inside where I live looks a bit like this. I was working on stuff for about a year on the channel, but what I was finding was that I was making videos but not finishing them before I started the next video. And because I was finding things at car boots and other kind of like places where I pick up toys and sort of like broken bits of old models and stuff, that I was just really kind of getting ahead of myself and ended up with loads and loads of video on my phone and on my iPad that I couldn't edit together fast enough or get finished fast enough to edit together, and I'd end up with just running out of space. So I was having to slough off a load of the video onto hard drives and things like that. going to ChillCon this weekend, it was interesting hearing that none of the creators of that panel basically do that, and they all just do one video at a time, which was quite frightening for me to hear because that's not how my brain works. But I guess what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to try and get all of those videos out soon. The reason that the channel went on hiatus for a year was simply because I took on a load of freelance illustration work and I had to get that done, and so this, which is essentially a hobby, just took to be put to the side. I'm hopefully not going to have to do that again. What I'd like to be able to do is really just maybe produce a video at least once a month, and have something interesting for people who are interested to look at in terms of those things. Do I have a modus operandi or a unique selling point? I don't know. Not quite a mission statement, but I guess that's what I'm really interested in. Is I want my models to look like they're in scale with the things that they're supposed to be in scale with. It's a bit nerdy, and I know it's not necessary for tabletop to have that, but I like that, and so that's what I'm going to aim for. Most of my stuff will probably be 28mm. I think my tonks are all 1:72, and everything else will be 28mm or 1:48, thereabouts. The second thing is that all of them will be designed to use on the tabletop. So I won't be doing dioramas per se, but they'll definitely be used to play with. I've already released a video a little while ago which, although not for tabletop, was designed for my grandson, and they were designed to be played with, and they're being played with. So that's great, and so all of the stuff will be designed for actual tabletop role-playing game, whether that's D&D, whether that's Stargrave, whether it's Star Wars RPG. That's the sort of thing I'm going to be trying to do here on this channel. One of the other things, I suppose, is that I've always been interested in is with the monsters and creatures that I make, is that quite often you see them stood on the tabletop next to these little miniature figures, and their eye line is quite high above them, which I suppose as a tall creature you might be. But one of the things I want to do is I want to try and get my creatures and monsters to kind of engage with the miniatures. So I'll be doing stooping figures or creatures that are looking down and that sort of thing. Just another sort of like thing that I'm interested in doing, really.
And four, I guess, where possible, it'd be great to have some sort of modularity to the builds, so that I can swap things out like arms, heads, and themes if need be. That's something I'm going for. So that they can always be seen as fresh at the tabletop. One of the other things I wanted to do is try and improve the look of the channel. So I started experimenting with like different camera views and sort of like placing the camera around the studio, and so you could get to see more of the kind of environment I work in as well as the actual objects that I'm working on. I've actually been online and done some shopping of late, and rather than just having to move my one kind of camera rig, which is this kind of just a typical kind of like GorillaPod setup, I've actually bought a set of ones that I can clip around the studio, so I can literally just move the camera, keeping the GorillaPod near the desk. So that's going to be better. That way I'm going to be able to show close-ups of figures like this, and hopefully get some longer shots of me faffing around in the studio, and maybe some more interesting shots when I'm talking to camera.
So yeah, the last thing was engaging with the crafting community. I've went on to the Discord of Conjured Craft and took part in their Iron Maiden community project, which was loads of fun, and getting to see everybody else's kind of take on the same idea was great, and getting to interact with people on there and again, just chat with like-minded people about the whole kind of process of crafting and stuff, so that was loads of fun. Then Big Butt Bash this year, managed to get the video done and everything after coming back from ChillCon, really inspired. That was cool. Definitely loads of fun. I want to kind of take that project a lot further, keep building on what I built from in the first year that I started to work on stuff there. Definitely want to try and keep that kind of momentum going. If basically you have any questions about anything, the builds that I've done, or any kind of techniques that I've used, or the techniques I'm doing wrong, or whatever, I mean, please feel free to comment and everything on any of the posts that I've made. So that would be great to, again, talk to like-minded people a little bit more about that. And if you're up in the north, because I'm based up here in Hull, maybe there's at some point, you know, it'd be good to sort of like get together with some other like-minded people and talk about our need to buy plastic tut from second-hand stores. Yeah, so here on the channel you'll have a bunch of maybe Spelljammer ships, spaceships, monsters and creatures. I've got some Turnip 28 stuff in the works, and a whole bunch of fun stuff that I'm going to try and get out the door, clear my table, and then maybe get to start on some new stuff as well. So if that's the sort of thing you're interested in, or your friends are interested in, maybe you can tell some other people about what I'm going to be doing here. Like I said, hopefully at least once a month I'll be doing that, and that's really that. Thanks very much for watching. If you like, hit like and subscribe, and I'll do my best to try and keep the channel running. Thanks. See you now. Bye.